Hello, everyone, and hope you're doing well and in best of health. Today, I will talk about uh, personal freedom, true self, false self, happiness versus pleasure. Um, we are born completely free. We do what we want. We have no inhibitions when we're born. And then mom, dad, the society, the environment start to suppress us. And that conflict between our desires, our freedom, our instincts, and the environment creates a conflict since we're born. And we end up sooner or later adapting to the environment, adapting to what mom and dad want, even if it is against our freedom. And that's why Donald Winnicott spoke about two selves inside us. There is a true self and a false self. Your true self is the self you're born with, is your free self uh, that is hidden inside you, and you were forced by the environment around you to adopt another self to make people happy, which is your false self. That false self is who we are. And the people who have access to their true self and the people who fulfilled the majority of their true selves as children, they are healthier, they are happier when they are adults. But if your true self is suppressed early, if your true self was traumatized early, that's when you struggle because you did not get a chance to know who you are and you live all your life trying to pretend to be another person to make people around you happy, trying to fit to the culture, fit to the environment, fit to the desires of the family, the desires of your boss, the desires of your society. And that conflict between true self and false self creates a lot of mental health issues. And if people want to work on themselves, they have to understand this fact that the way we deal with each other is not our true selves. That the outside layer of behavior that we interact with each other is not the true interaction. There is always a story behind the story. And when you deal with people, when you deal with yourselves, when somebody is angry at you, when you are in a relationship, there is always, remember this, a story behind the story. And if you ask yourself that and you go deeper, whether you're dealing with yourself or with others, you have better understanding and you have more insight into understanding your behavior and other human behavior. Most people interact with each other on the surface, and we don't have the capacity, and we're not required to analyze people when we deal with people in social settings or in relationships. If you do that, sometimes we get ourselves in trouble. And I'm not asking you to analyze people, but I want you to understand that people's behavior that you struggle with and your behavior you struggle with is not the whole story. And you have inner motives, inner desires, inner instincts that you were born with, that they were not fulfilled as a child, they were suppressed as a child, and resulted in you trying to adapt. Your true self, you have to work on getting it out. Your true self, you need to work on getting it in a healthy way to understand who you are. And many of us, we do not know who we are. And if our true self was traumatized or was suppressed early, we cover it with a thick layer of a narcissistic armor, trying all our lives to defend ourselves from the attacks of others. This narcissistic attacks or this kind of narcissistic injury sometimes, when we try to defend ourselves, is very painful. And we tend to react and we tend to do things to defend our own sense of insecurity, our threat by other people. So the two layers inside you are always there. The more traumatized we were as children, the more suppressed our true self was, the longer the distance between our true self and false self. So you see people dealing with each other as a fake individuals, and we all know that. And sometimes we deal with people also as fake individuals. It all depends on how fake and how true you are. We need that amount of beautification, that amount of adjustment to look good in front of people. But if all what you need, if all what your goal in life is to look good in front of people, you're going to be bad inside you. There is a huge difference between being good and looking good in front of people. There is also another difference between feeling good and being good. So we have to understand that most people, when they say that I want to get better, do they really mean I want to get better or I want to feel better? If you want to feel better all the time, if you want to feel better all the time, you will get worse over time. The people who want to feel better all the time, the people who are seeking pleasure all the time, they become addicted to this kind of pleasure seeking behavior. Yeah. So the addiction comes from people don't want to feel bad. And addiction is not only to drugs, addiction can be to anything. Addictive behavior in general and the tendency to be addicted to things is an attempt to cover an internal sense of misery because you're not accepting yourself. So the people who are unable to accept themselves, they want to cover it with an outside of layer of pleasure. So that thick layer that you suppress your inner feelings of pain that we all use, depending on the amount of pain you have hidden inside you, that is directly proportional to the thickness of the cover layer that you surround yourself with. Whether it's pleasure seeking, whether it's a narcissistic armor, whether it's an inflated sense of self, whether it's anger to defend yourself, that we all do that. How thick that layer is depends on how much pain you have inside. So the people who are at peace with themselves, accepting themselves, they have a sense of self-worth. They don't need that thick layer outside them to cover themselves. It's an inversely proportionate. Your confidence, your sense of self-worth, your sense of acceptance of who you are is inversely proportionate to the thickness of your narcissistic armor. The higher confidence you have, the higher acceptance you have, the thin layer you will need to protect yourself. And at that time, your true self and false self will be close to each other. If your true self and false self, there's a huge distance between them, that there's a problem here. And the problem is, because of that, you're distancing yourself from who you truly are. And you see that in yourself, you see that in other people. And that causes a lot of problems in relationship when the level of maturity between two people who are in a relationship varies a lot. So a big problem in relationship was somebody is more mature, more accepting to himself or herself, and the other person is not. And that relationship is usually not healthy and end up with a lot of problems because the less mature person will be more needy, will be more narcissistic in the relationship, and his layer of protection will be very thick and very hard to infiltrate. He gets angry easily, or she gets angry easily, and they can easily hurt and easily irritated. And you see violence, you see a lot of domestic violence, you see a lot of abuse because of that. People do this because they want to protect themselves. So the true self and false self is inside all of us. We have to understand it. And that true self is usually hidden. There's a question about whether this is personality disorder. Yeah, are talking about personality disorders. Yes. And there is a difference between personality types, personality traits, personality features, and personality disorders. And the difference between them, personality disorder is not a disease, is not a, and I don't like labeling people something, because based on that you will be making assumptions. It's not there is a personality and a personality disorder. There is always a continuum of personality traits. When that continuum, when that line reach a point where it becomes maladaptive and dysfunctional, that's we tend to call that personality disorder. So any personality feature that's maladaptive and dysfunction and cause problem between the person and others, or the person and himself, we call that a disorder. That's true for all mental health issues. So labeling person personality disorder and giving him the stamp of a personality disorder doesn't mean anything, because you can consider everybody has some issues, because none of us have ideal personality. So somebody might be more personality disordered than others. I like to see everything on that continuum, on a dimensional approach, so you don't get in conflict with people. And if you label somebody borderline personality disorder, or antisocial personality disorder, or dependent personality disorder, already you got the stamp. And what does that mean? It means you will be making assumptions, and your behavior towards that person will change based on that label. Try to avoid labeling people anything. But what we're talking about is personality features that can help you adapt, or become unable to adapt, and you end up with problems with your personality and conflict. And sometimes we don't function at a one line. No, we function at a range. That means you get a person with a healthy personality, and you add, or you expose them to a lot of stress, they will regress, and they may reach the border of the personality disorder. And if you get somebody with personality disorder and you help them with therapy, you help them to adapt with life, they may come to this side, and they become less personality disordered. So if you want to understand yourself and understand people, try to avoid the splitting, because this is, I always see people with this tendency to split the world into two halves, the good half and the bad half, the normal people and the narcissistic people, the normal people and the borderline people, the normal people and the this and that. Now we're all on a continuum, and you can put everybody, and we all regress sometimes, and we all advance and get better sometimes, and we have to deal with each other based on that. So it's very important to understand that we are all governed by our genes, and our genes are programmed, as I mentioned before. Not the program of the genes is not for the year 2021. It's for hundreds of thousands or millions of years ago. And your genes are looking for your survival, and your genes are selfish, and your genes want you to avoid the pain, and your genes are lazy, and your genes want to reserve energy. And those genes form the inner part of your brain, the lower parts of your brain, and then you start to evolve, and you have a higher brain that's always in conflict with the lower brain. So your genes, your instincts, your desires push you for pleasure, they push you for survival, they push you for procreation, they want to make more genes, and they push you to avoid the pain. So that's what your genes want you. And thanks for the people who requested translation, and somebody's translating some of the points. I appreciate that. Um, so we are governed by two factors: our genetic material that's programmed for survival based on the program of hundreds of thousands of years ago. And then comes that you're born with these selfish genes who seek pleasure as a child. And then you want to do things, and then your mom and dad tells you the do's and don'ts of society. Do this, don't do that. And what will happen after that? There are two things. Either you end up with a conflict, you become violent, and the kids get angry, but you know you're not going to win, so you surrender to your parents' needs. And even the people who, the old psychoanalysts, they call it the schizoid position and the depressive position sometimes. You start to become depressed because you cannot actually fulfill your needs as a child. None of us. When we emerge from that era and we grow older, all what's remained inside our deeper brain stay with us, and we tend to suppress it to the subconscious and unconscious. It doesn't mean it doesn't go away. It stays, but it comes out in our dreams, for example. And we dream of things that we would like to do. And the dreams, they call it the royal road to the unconscious. And so we all have these suppressed desires and memories and instincts that comes every now and then. And sometimes, when does it come? When do you know that you have these things? You know it when you have unexplained reaction to a minor thing. When some people overreact to a minor stimulus, a minor conflict, you find yourself overreacting. Why you do that? Because it's not the trauma, it's not the irritating stimulus that made you overreact. It's the meaning of that stimulus, what it did to you, what did it activate inside you. So I see people overreacting to a minor insult, and you see violent reaction. Or a minor challenge, you see a violent reaction. Is because you're reacting based on what this stimulus activated in your head from your past. So it's not the trauma that causes the reaction, it's the meaning of the trauma that causes the reaction. And actually, some people have been exposed to tremendous amounts of traumas, and the reaction to the trauma, the PTSD, is much less than other people with minor trauma that cause severe PTSD. Because it's not the trauma, it's the trauma activated an earlier trauma, and that earlier trauma is usually in your childhood. So if somebody told you something or did something to you and you overreacted, you might want to ask yourself, does this incident remind me of something that happened earlier in my life? Why do I overreact to this type of behavior? It's probably something that happened to you as a child. The people who are able to understand their motives and go deeper in themselves, whether you want to call that the insight or you want to call it the introspection, is the people who can just take a deep breath when they overreact and ask themselves, why am I overreacting to this? And if you're able to do that, you understand the inner motives. And next time, if you understand why you got angry, you did not get angry because that situation. it's that situation symbolize something from your past. So understanding the behavior is not everything. You always look for what? Look for the story behind the story. The story behind the story. I always look for the story behind the story. So if you ask me a question, I would like to know what's the real story behind this question. Because the question is just the symbol, it's just the outside layer, that there's something else behind it. Even whatever people say, whatever people do. And if you understand that, you will calm down and you will realize, and I want you, when you deal with people, please don't split people. Don't put this line and say the good and the bad, the white, the black, the dark, the whatever. No, no, no. We're all human beings in the same boat. We are all human beings, same boat, same environment, to varying degrees. So calm down. I always tell you that the difference between the saint and the serial killer, I think there was a book I mentioned before, is that saints dream of what serial killers do. So we all have the serial killer inside us. We all have the evil inside us. It's just, do we act on it or not? If you don't act on it, you may dream about your evil inside you. So you might be just lucky that you have a cortex, a cerebral cortex, that's suppressing these evil desires when you are awake, and only appears when you're dreaming during your REM sleep. But it's inside all of us. So the true self and false self, we have to be aware of it when you interact with any situation. That there are motives behind people's behavior. There are different layers. If you want to grow, if you want to get better, you have to start nourish your true self. That child inside you, that was free child inside you, get him out or get her out. That's the innovative child. That's the innovative self, the free self. Yes, it's selfish. Yes, it's pleasure seeking. But if you nurture that child inside you, especially if that child was not nurtured enough long time ago, and that's the problem with most of us, that child was not nurtured enough, and that true self was suppressed, and you need to start to get it out, to get the dirt out of it, and start to get your true self without having to put this layer of heavy makeup around you to look good in front of people. The people who are able to do that and able to accept themselves for who they are, and you're going to accept your true self for who you are, realizing that true self is not perfect, that true self might be messed up. But I always encourage people, I tell them that I want you to love your mess. I want you to love your mess. Whatever you are, accept it. Accept who you are. Accept your true self. You have to keep talking to yourself, and you have to practice on that. I'm getting always asked, how do I do that? The best way to do that is to continue to practice, like basketball or football players practice all the time. You keep practicing and you keep repeating. And you keep repeating and repeating and repeating till you get it. And you can do that on your own, and you can do it with the help of a therapist or some professional. That's what it is. But the key here is you have to expose yourselves to the things you're afraid of. And you have to confront yourself with your own fears, confront yourself with your own evil, and work on understanding it, number one, and accepting it, number two, as a normal part of life. And don't compare yourself with anybody. And make your goal is to work on yourself and clean yourself up and get your true yourself out. That is the first step in pursuing happiness. So we're talking about true self and false self. Once you get that your true self out and understand it and nurture it and accept it, that's the key to happiness, not the key to pleasure. Pleasure is the peak. You want this extreme pleasure. And that's what leads to people getting addicted to pleasurable behavior. And the society we're living in is about pursuit of pleasure. It's a pursuit of pleasure. You want to go to fancy places. You want the expensive car. You want the house. You want to travel. You want to go to Las Vegas and get that pleasure there. You want sex. You want drugs. You want food. That's all pleasure. That's all pleasurable activities. And these pleasurable activities raise the bar. And if you do it a lot, first of all, if you desire these pleasures a lot, excessive pursuit of pleasure, that tells me your baseline of happiness is low. This is also another inverse correlation between happiness is the overall acceptance of who you are, including your mess, and working on yourself to improve your mess, clean your mess. You don't deny your mess. You don't put perfume on your mess. You don't call it something else. You don't project your mess on other people. You don't say, but people are worse than me. You don't cover it with a narcissistic armor. You don't cover it with control. You don't cover it with violence. You don't cover it with anger. You accept it. You accept your weakness. You accept your mess. You accept your dirt. You accept that life is unfair and unpredictable. You accept that we're all governed by our genes that mismatch our needs, that the genes don't want the good for us, the genes want the good for themselves. The genes are stupid, the genes are lazy, the genes wants to conserve energy, the genes don't want you to advance. The genes want you to sit there and just procreate. That's what the genes want. But our awareness as human beings now, it becomes so advanced, and we have a higher cortex that help us think and reassess situations and analyze, and we are at the peak of the development, the evolution. So to understand that, understand yourself and accept it and work on it, and nothing will help you. What will help you change is when you're inspired to change. And I always tell people that the videos that I make, they don't provide you with new information. They just inspire you to change. And I provide you what's called the corrective emotional experience. And that's how people change. People change by imitation and modeling. If you want to change and be better, number one, stop blaming people, stop blaming yourself, stop the sense of guilt, and accept yourself for who you are. Accept yourself for who you are. And start to nourish your true self. That will make you happy. It's going to be very difficult in the beginning, but the only source to resolve these conflicts, and you stop these conflicts with other people, and please stop saying, why are people treating me bad? And stop saying why there is evil in the world. Because if you tell me that, I will tell you, could you please look at the evil inside you? You have it? No, I don't have it. No, you have it, but you don't see it. It's inside all of us. To varying degrees. Some people might be luckier than others. Yeah, we know. But your lifespan is too short for you to be trying to analyze other people and understand why they are doing this to you. And believe me, if you change, if you empower yourself, if you accept yourself, if you're happier, if you stop seeking pleasure, if you stop seeking dependence on others, if you stop seeking validation all the time from other people, if you stop seeking love and compassion from other people, and you develop the ability to self-soothe and accept yourself, and also tolerating feeling bad at times. Happiness includes the ability to tolerate feeling bad. If you don't want to feel bad at all, if psychological pain for you is too distressing and you cannot tolerate, you will end up seeking addictive behaviors to seek pleasure, to suppress the pain, to suppress the distress. So you will either go overeat, use drugs, get addicted to something. And the addiction is not just drugs. Addictive behaviors can be, there's addictive behaviors in relationships. There is addictive patterns of behavior in relationships. When you become addicted and pathologically attached and enmeshed with another person, because that person provides you with the relief of that deep sense of pain inside you that you cannot deal with by yourself. The ability to tolerate and enjoy being alone, sense of solitude, is very important. And enjoy that. Enjoy being alone. Enjoy being by yourself. Enjoy being by yourself, to think about yourself, improve yourself. Go for a walk by yourself. The people who are unable to be alone, they are always afraid of being alone. They don't have the capacity to love, because their relationship is always anxious attachment. Because you can't be alone. You always want somebody to comfort you. So when they are in a relationship, the relation is very anxious. They call it the anxious attachment relationship. A key to growth, a key to maturity is to tolerate being by yourself. Is to accept yourself. Is to accept your weaknesses and accept your defects. Try to work on it. Love your mess. Forgive yourself. Forgive your parents and move on. These are key to accepting who you are and getting your true self out. And try to thin the layer around you that you need to wear, that heavy makeup, that heavy beautification that you put around yourself, that you cover yourself with this persona, with whatever picture you portray yourself in front of other people. And if you get your true self out, yes. I'm not saying go outside and talk to people about your weaknesses. It's not about what you say to other people. It's about accepting your true self and getting it out. So when you talk to people, you try to be free. You try to free yourself from what was done to you as a child. Just get it out. In the beginning, you will need some period of adjustment, some period of coping. But towards the end, you will accept yourself and other people will accept you. You will no longer need the fake you to deal with people. You will force people to accept you for who you are. And who you are is not perfect and require a lot of work. I'm not saying going there and just be who you are. No, there's a lot of work. You need to work on yourself. But the first level is acceptance. No, there is a layer before acceptance. The first, the first layer is forgiveness. The first layer is forgiveness. You have to forgive what happened to you in the past. And this is the most difficult step, to forgive. Forgive your parents for what they did to you, and tell yourself, my parents tried their best. My family tried their best. My environment, whatever you grew up in, it was the best possible. When people are doing something, they are doing the best they can at that moment. Don't be bitter about what happened to you as a child. That act of forgiveness, or that process of forgiveness, takes a lot of time. And then you will accept who you are. You accept yourself for who you are, including the imperfections. And then after that, you start the process of getting your true self out. And don't avoid the sense of guilt and shame about who you are. Just get out as you are and start to improve yourself. And realize that you have a lot of work to do. And what will that require? A lot of humility. And part of the humility is stop asking people, do these people have antisocial personality disorder? When I hear these questions, are these people narcissistic? Are these people borderline? Are these people psychotic? Are these people mentally ill? Are these people evil? When people ask these questions, here we go. You're taking the energy away from you to other people. Get it back. Leave people alone. Talk about your own narcissism, your own antisocial tendencies, your own borderlininess, your own evil inside you. Leave people alone. Focus on yourself. Get those things out. If you have hidden evil, you will see evil in other people. If you love yourself, accept yourself, believe me, you're not going to see evil. When you see evil, you're going to say, you know what? We all have that. People just have a bad day. You will be more empathic with other people if you're accepting yourself. You will be more accepting of other people's behavior if you accept yourself. You'll be more effective in dealing with other people's evil behavior if you accept yourself. You're going to let it go. It's not going to hit you bad. It's not going to be the center of your day. You will realize that you're like them and they are like you. So it's I don't know what you want to call it, a philosophy of life, a way of life, is to focus on yourself, clean yourself. Time is too short. Whatever the life expectancy is too short to put that energy on other people trying to understand why they are doing what they are doing. And usually when you do that, what you want to say, I am better than that. Avoid that. That's a trick. So when you say somebody is bad, what you're saying is actually, again, there's a story behind the story. Always look for that. And the story behind the story, that I am better than you. I don't do that. So you get out of it. No, you have that. You just don't see it. You don't want to see it. It's hidden inside you. So if you would like to improve your relationship with people, improve your relationship with yourself. Your view of the world is a reflection of the view to yourself. To a great extent, it is like that. If you see a lot of evil in the world, you probably see there's some evil inside you, or you were exposed to some evil as a child or something like that. That's why your eyes attract. The beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. It's actually, the beauty is in the brain of the beholder, stored in the brain. And if you really built the schema for a certain way, you're going to think like this, like that. If all what you have is a hammer, all what you see in the world is nails. You're going to see nails, 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 because you have a hammer. You're looking for nails. So if you're looking, some people are looking for trouble. Some people are looking for a bad relationship. Some people, all their relationship are a certain way because that's what's stored in their head. That's what the schema in their head. So work on that, and if you need help, you can pursue therapy, and you can understand yourself by talking with somebody. But that's the key to resolving our life problems. If you exclude the biological part that might require some intervention biologically with medications or surgery or something like that, but the psychological part of our mind, the only way to correct it, and remember, the psychological and the biological part are intermingling with each other, and our brain biology lead to these types of behaviors and moods and thoughts and emotions. So that weird interaction and complex interaction between our brain and the mind, and how we think and how we feel and how we behave, we have to keep in mind. And I think in the video in Arabic yesterday, I mentioned that the best analogy of the mind brain interaction is the relationship between the music and the music instrument. The music is the mind, music instrument in the brain, and that complex music instrument can provide a sad music, happy music, a dancing music, jazz music, country music. So depending on two things, the nature of the instrument and also how clean the instrument is. If you neglected that instrument for years and a lot of dirt on it, even if you get the best performer, he will not be able or she will not be able to play the music. There's a problem with the machine, there's a problem with the instrument. Also, you can have a good instrument, but the player is not skilled. Or you can have an angry player who will get you this kind of bizarre music. So our mind, our emotions, our thoughts, our behaviors is the music that comes from the instrument, which is our brain. So you have to take care of our brain. We have to clean it up. We have to get the dirt out in order to get this clean music, and the music will be in harmony of what we want and how we feel. So that's the interaction between the biological brain and the mind. What's the mind? The emotion, the thoughts, the behavior, who we are, the awareness is the music of the brain. And we need to learn to clean our brain from all the dirt from the past so we can get a clean, pure, true music that we want. That's our true self. That's the true self you want. That's the innovative self, the creative self, the happy self. If you get it and get in touch with it and free yourself from the dirt and work on getting yourself better and improving yourself and cleaning yourself every day. But you're not going to be able to do that without, number one, leave people alone. The worst thing that takes us away, take the energy away from improving ourselves, is projection and splitting. Avoid that. Projection and splitting. Projection, these are defense mechanisms that we do, and depending on what's the predominant defense mechanism that they do, you can be a mature person, a less mature person, a mildly immature person, an immature person, on that continuum. I don't look at things either or, it's continuum, it's on a dimension, it's a spectrum. So if you use a lot of projection, we all use some projection. If all your defense mechanism, the main defense mechanism is projection, you're projecting your problems on others, and splitting, you split the world into all good and all bad. So when something bad happened to you, you're all good, or the other people are the good, or the opposite, you're bad or they are bad. And people do that. When something happens, you're bad, so you think about ending your life, or you get angry at the other people and you want to kill the other person. You're angry at that, become violent with the other person, that's splitting. Or you try always to label people certain ways, so in your mind you can put them in these categories. We have this tendency to think in categories. Remember that. We tend to stereotype, the cognitive bias we spoke about. So understanding how the brain works, and the brain tricks you, and your genes trick you, and you think you're right all the time. We have this tendency to, there's something called bias. Means you're biased towards something and you think you're the last one in the world to be biased. You're not aware of your own bias. So if I ask you, you project like everybody else? No, I don't project a lot. Because your brain tricks you into not seeing your own bias. So you ask people that, no, my thoughts are, you ask people when it comes to religious thoughts and cultural thoughts and things like that, and you tell them that you got this, what, instilled in your head since you were a child. No, I choose my thoughts on my own. That's bias. No, other people might have this herd mentality, but no, I thought about it and I built it on my own. That's called bias. Means you are biased and your brain tells you that you're the last in the world. No, you're the one who's the thinker. So why does the brain do that? Why do we have this tendency to be biased, to stereotype, to think in things? Because our brain tends to conserve energy, and our genes tell our brain, no, don't think too much. All these types of people are the same categories. Just take it as it is. It's easier for your brain because your brain is lazy. It tends to go to the shortcuts. It doesn't want to think too much. Your brain is lazy, and you have to be aware of that. And you always have to challenge your brain and challenge your bias and ask yourself, am I really, is there any evidence for the thought I am in my mind, or the feeling, or the assumption, or whatever, or not? Everything. Is it easy? No, it's easy for things that are neutral, but when that thing that you are challenging have a high emotional tone, it's very hard to change. The things that are very hard to change are the things that are associated with a high emotional tone. Love and hate, fear. When your thoughts that are wrong, that we assume they are wrong, but they are fixed inside you. They are fixed inside. You can't get rid of them because of the high, when it's associated with emotions. And when these emotions are built since you were a child, that's it, stuck there. So thoughts that associated with, or assumptions, or anything, self-fulfilling prophecies that are associated with high emotional tone are built in and very hard to get rid of, especially when these emotions come from childhood. Because the brain as a child, your brain as a child is very immature. So when you're hit by these thoughts as a child, immature, it actually, with neuroplasticity, it results in structural and permanent change in your brain. It becomes stuck, become part of your neuronal connections, neuronal synaptic plasticity. So you're going to have a certain synapse that will lighten up and full of anger, neurotransmitters, every time you see your cousin or every time you see your neighbor. If that happened as a child, if that neighbor reminded you with a person who did something to you as a child. So that neuron is specific there, built in. To get rid of it requires a lot of work. There's always hope, by the way. Even when we talk about what's structural and what's functional in the brain is not always separate. The structure and function together, and the neuroplasticity is an ongoing process that doesn't end. It's easier as a child, but it's learning process. When I talk about neuroplasticity and how these neurons and brain cells connect with each other, learning what I'm talking about is you learn new skills, it changes the neurons. And we see that when we do PET scan and SPECT scans and functional MRIs, these functional neuroimaging, we do it after people undergo therapy and long-term therapy, and their behavior changes and their thoughts and feelings change and they improve. We notice that the brain changes. So there is hope that if you change your brain, whatever is built inside it will change over time. And there is evidence of that by the MRI and by the functional MRI and the functional neuroimaging. So if your behavior changes, your brain will change. Or you can change your brain by medications, for example, and your behavior, your thoughts, your mood. If you're severely depressed and you take a medicine, so it can go either way. The brain, I always say that the brain is a democracy. The brain is a democracy. That means what? It means the brain orders you, and you can order the brain as well. It's a two-way street. It's a two-way street. The brain, you can give the brain orders from your awareness from outside. It's like when you play music, the music itself gives the instrument feedback to change. Something like that. The brain is very complex. So you could give your brain orders to change, structurally change, functionally change, and the brain also can lead to your behavior. It's a two-way thing. So nothing is permanent. There's always hope that you could make some changes, but if the change is too big, you need a lot of energy to change that. But it's always, all what you need to do is to try. And all what you need to do is to try today. And as I always say, let your action precede your motivation. You go and do it today. You don't wait till you get the desire. No, you're never going to get that desire. You just go do it today. You go do it. So, few things we spoke about today: your true self, your false self. You need to get your true self out. That will get you happiness, accepting yourself who you are. You will have less need for pleasures, less need for addictive behaviors, because you will have the capacity to self-soothe from inside. And you need to stop projecting your evil on other people and just focus on yourself. Accept that we are all in the same boat. We're all in the same boat to a varying degrees. And the difference between us might be more quantitative than qualitative. That how much do we have of this and that, not if we have it or not. Not somebody have something different than others. No, we're all in the same boat. That will help you become more empathic with other people. Forgive your parents and move on. Forgive yourself. Avoid the guilt and the shame. Get your true self out. Accept it. Practice, 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 practice till you get it. Practice on everything. When you fall, you stand up again and you try one more time. You will get it right the next time. But you have to be true with yourself. No, it's not that you deceive other people. Forget about other people for a while. Stop asking, why are people doing this to me? Stop asking why there is evil in the world. Stop these questions. Because you're taking that energy that's necessary to self-improve to the outside. Stop doing that. If you're going to learn from that to improve yourself, it's fine. If you're going to learn from the lessons of others, that's fine. But don't try to change people. Change yourself. People will change. Change yourself. Be the role model. Be the change you would like other people to be. That's the only way you will improve. You will improve. And yes, you have to practice every day. And you have to put your action ahead of your motivation. So if you want to lose weight, you need to go and walk right now and get that pedometer and put the steps on it and stop bringing food to the house. That's it. And understand, accept yourself as you have your week in front of food, and you have to change your behavior to to get the outcome you want. Life is unfair. Life is unpredictable. We're all in the same boat. These are basic, just guidelines. You can help you, not facts or anything, but I'm giving you guidelines you have to keep in your mind when you're angry, when you're upset, when you're frustrated, when you're depressed. Just these things, keep it in your mind, so you will have the power, you will have the ability, you will have the skill, you will have the desire to get over it after a while. Just take your time and calm down and take a deep breath and start the process again. We all do that. And when you do it, and you're successful, a small success, that today you did something better than yesterday, don't forget to be proud of yourself. Don't forget to calm yourself down, pat on your shoulder, and tell yourself, I did it. Don't overdo it. Don't get overexcited. Happiness, pleasure. We don't want the pleasure. Accept yourself. Accept yourself for who you are. And be proud of yourself for what you're doing. I wish you guys a happy mental health day today. And we will be meeting weekly if we can. I do videos both in Arabic, and now we added the Sunday English video. I hope you will share it and subscribe to the channel. And I will see you next Friday and Saturday in the Arabic video, and Sunday in the English video. You guys take care, and have a good morning or good afternoon or good night, depending on where you are in the world. See you soon. Bye-bye.